Hi, I'm Paul Griffiths and welcome to my YouTube channel. Come along and follow me on all sorts of meaningless, pointless adventures. You'll see how not to do things, you'll see how not to drive things, how not to fix things, and you'll probably see a lot of how to break things. You'll see things from farming to heavy construction to heavy vehicle repairs. You'll see electrical projects. You'll see all types of things, not limited to anything. So jump on board and come along for some adventure with, well, me. Have a bit of a laugh and maybe even learn something. Welcome back to episode number 19 of Mrs Mack. The sexy beast she is. Anyway, it's been a few years since I've done any videos of any description for YouTube. I've been making bits and pieces over the time and taking photos and things, but it takes a lot of time to edit. The editing programs changed. It took me a long time to work out how to actually edit again. So please excuse that and we'll get into it. I'll start this off when I was just finishing it up to get it past machinery inspection and a few of the things we did there. So there'll be photos and bits and pieces, so there'll be stills and talking and music and crap all the way through, but just bear with it and hopefully get something reasonable for everyone.
We've been on and off between other jobs, stuffing around with a glove box. This was only Celasticed in. There was no box in here at all before I started, and the cover was Celasticed on. It's not the proper handle, but because it's missing half the handle in here. But look at that. It shuts, it opens, stays shut. Look at that. It's amazing. You've got to clean this up a bit better. So, we've been stuffing around with this for the last few days, on and off between other jobs, and she's a done deal. Everything's working. Buzzer here didn't work when I went in for the roadworthy, and the flasher can, the transistor in the flasher can, which used to hang down there on a bit of wire underneath the dash, had actually blown. It's now mounted up in there, actually mounted. Everything else works. It's quite impressive, I think. The UHF isn't working, and the radio doesn't seem to work on FM, which is pretty much all you have here in Australia now. So we'll have a look at that when we get some time.
So here's some shots from around from inside the cab. It's probably much the same as the left-hand drive American type truck, except the steering wheel's on the correct side. We've made new door trims. The Princess and a good friend of ours, Carol, helped make the door trims. Thank you to the ladies. The roof lining, I get a new one, but they're $1,600 Australian, so I've declined that. The Princess was frowning by then anyway, so that's fantastic door trims those girls made. I painted the winch and fuel tanks and a few other things, bits of chassis and stuff. Tidy it all up. Geez, they did a good job on those interiors. I used a 1/4-inch gasket material to make a lot of the linings inside, and then the ones for on the back wall of the cab, I don't think you see them in here, but they got vinyl glued to them, to the 1/4-inch gasket material, and they came up really well, and still even today, 4 years later, and all that heat and driving, well, there you go, you can see part of it there, it's perfect. So I'm really happy with the interior. Put Dynamat everywhere inside and stuff, and I've got to fix up. Most of the noise comes from gear stick boots because they're badly damaged over the years. And yeah, well, there's those door trims. Look at that. Geez, that did a good job. Thank you, Carol. Princess. So the next job to tackle was the air start. Every so often they just dump all the air and nothing had happened.
This is the air start off the Mac. I'm having problems. It seems to have full air getting delivered, and every now and then it just dumps it, and sometimes it won't wind it over, so I'm going to try to work out what the problem is. I've never had it apart before, so I don't know. So everyone will be telling me I'm doing it wrong, and they're probably right. So I've got the bolts all loose, 3 of them out. We'll try to get it leave it apart. See how we go. Like it's loose, but anyway. And the reason I got it out here, not on the bench, is because it's been soaking in the parts washer all night, just to let it dry a bit, to try to contain the mess. Now, what I think's happening, I don't know, I've never worked on it, but I reckon I'll have like veins on the vacuum pump in the cow shed, and I reckon they're probably stuck in there with rust and dryness. They're sticking every now and then it can't make pressure to turn the rotor, the internal part, the armature, I don't know, whatever you call it in this, over. That's what I reckon's happening. Got nothing to base that on except theory in my brain, which we know is not very smart. See, you can see here, there's the veins. There's one. So it appears to have one. We'll see, one coming out. I would have thought we'd have more than that, but so what we'll do is we'll have a look. There might be, see, I can see one there, but it's not hanging down. So we'll have a go. So there it comes down here through the vein. It must push it around on this side, I reckon, must come into the top, push it around out the bottom and out the exhaust. These are the veins that sit in there, and I thought they might have been stuck, like what you have on a vacuum pump in your cow shed. You can see a few of them are chipped, but they all seem to go from end to end. But remember, I've had this soaking in the parts washer all night, so maybe it's fine. But I have also noticed, if you look there, it's a bit worn up the top. If you look there, it's a bit worn up the top. Now this thing sat in the parts washer all night, which is full of, no doubt, the wrong stuff, diesel. So what happens? How does this work? Okay, let's have a look. See if we can work it out to explain it. This pin here, like, centres it, so that outside bit can't, the stator, I'll call it, the stationary bit, and this is the rotating bit. So the air comes through here, up through these ports, 3 ports here, and if we have a look in here, there is nowhere else for it to come except for up in those 3 ports.
Yeah, so my dribble goes on here for quite a bit. I'm trying to work out how the air start works on the truck and what could possibly be wrong with it. Now, I came to the conclusion it must have just been some stuck veins, and I lubed it up and I cleaned it up, I put it back in, and it made no difference whatsoever. So I had to pull it apart again. And in the end, I phoned up Mack in Townsville, and they said to me, "You'll need an air start kit." So I promptly ordered one and put it in, and never been a problem since. And I honestly could not tell the difference between what I had and what they sent me, but it obviously made a huge difference because it's never been a problem since.
But I've done hit rock bottom. My time is at hand. About to take my kids, trying to get well, keep getting sicker. I'll face the consequences for everything I've done. And Lord, well, sometimes I wonder if you're even there. 'Cause my burden is back-breaking. It's more than I can bear. Because I lost my job, my bills are getting bigger. Crying, babe, about to lose my mind. $100 habit, ain't got a penny. My woman ran off with a friend of mine. Can't keep a job, too fucked up. DHS about to take my kids. Trying to get well, keep getting sicker. Sitting in the parking lot.
Okay, we've had the air motor starting motor apart and back together and back on, been back apart. We ordered a kit for the genuine Ingersoll Rand 150 BMTK tune-up kit. Wow. We'll see how we go. Now, we didn't replace everything. Couldn't find these. Didn't replace any of the bearings. Those two needle bearings. Did others. Washer that's here. It doesn't have it. It doesn't have a place to put it in. The bronze bush we didn't replace. The oiler, got no idea. And the keyway, I guess that's if I drop the old one. Everything else is replaced in it. So, with any luck, it'll go like a bought one. Like a good one. So we'll see how we go. It's I would be thinking, and I'm probably wrong, but I reckon the this gearbox in it's probably oil filled, or meant to be. I put a whole lot of grease in it. There's an oil seal on the front. I changed that. It wasn't even sort of gripping, but and what else? Put the grub screw back in the back, and I think we're ready to chuck it back in and hope it works. Interesting observation. When I started, I couldn't turn this over with my pinky. Now I can turn it. I couldn't turn it over with a screwdriver in there. And now I can turn it over with just a finger. I can hear the veins dropping in and out. So that's rather interesting, isn't it? Probably not. But I think that's interesting. Isn't that amazing? Look at that there. So I don't know what all that means, if it means anything at all, or maybe nothing at all. I wonder. Because when I pulled it apart, all these gaskets were never in there. It's been pulled apart before, because you can see centre punch marks where people have lined it up. And I wonder whether the rotor was too tight. And if you remember back early in the video, I said on the milking machine vacuum pump, you've got to have the paper gaskets in there. And I wonder whether not being started for some time, whether enough diesel hadn't got into each side there to allow it to spin over properly. And bound. Because I could tap it with a hammer, but I had to build up all the air and farnagle around again. Well, it's a good omen or a bad one. But it's turning over by hand. So after a couple of goes, we're trying to fix the air starter motor. We have success. Now, one of the problems you have with air start is if you lose air, it can be difficult. You've got to find another way of getting air. And what the most common thing is, someone runs an air hose like along the ground here, and you hook it up to your couple of tyres. You put 3 or 4 tyres in the air tank and off you go. Still a complete pain in the arse, but it doesn't happen very often if everything was lit. Now the problem this starter motor has just only developed in recent times is it keeps on dumping all the air instead of turning over. So I spoke to Jenny at Mack Townsville. She's a good girl, Jenny is. And I sent her some pictures of stuff and pulled it all apart, and as you know, I've looked at it and everything else, and from the photo she goes, "Your veins are cattle truck, Paul." So we got a new kit, and she said, "Oh, you're best off to get the whole kit, not just the vein kit, get the rest of it." So I took her advice and I did. I put it all together. Now this is the catch. Today, the power company doing power and power line, so I don't have any air except was in the start tank to start. So what do? So I put it all together, it actually works, feels, looks better. But when I assembled it, I noticed the intake and outtake were upside down. If that makes any sense, possibly not. But what I mean is, the outlet here, the exhaust on it, is facing up instead of down. So I just undone the 4 bolts and spun it around and thought, job's right. What could possibly go wrong? Well, this is me. And the possibilities are endless. Connected it up, turned the key, but I looked down and there was no fan spinning. It was spinning backwards. So I pulled him apart again, corrected my error, put it all back together, but of course the tank's empty. But now what do? I've got no power. I remember I gave the curly kid for his 18th or Christmas or whatever it was, for his 4-wheel drive junky junk thing, Mitsubishi. One of these, a 12-volt Ridge Rider compressor. So we digged around, we found some fittings and hooked it into the tank, and within a few minutes I had enough air to start. Now that's just amazing. So I'm going out next time in Townsville, which will be next week, early next week, and I'll buy me one of them and I'll just chuck it in the toolbox of the truck. That's so much easier than these other garbage, so then I need to have actually flat batteries, then an empty air tank, and no tyres pumped up, and no one within 1,000 miles driving down the road before I can't start. How cool is that? That's a bloody perler. Hang on. How cool is that? That's a perler, that thing. I love it. That's so, and it was in 10 minutes time. I washed my hands. We were done. We were ready to roll. Be buggered.
So the air start was the end of the repairs, rebuilds of the truck before heading off on his maiden voyage. Here we are crossing the Burdekin River. This bridge is 1.5 times as long as Sydney Harbour Bridge. Useless information. I don't know what that says, I can't read it. The sign there. We're heading down to Bowen anyway. It's Bowen down the background, I can tell that. Bowen, where they filmed Australia. There's the big mango just south of Bowen. How good's that? And Miss Molly and I were off into the sunset.
Hey, did you ever get sick of that sound, sweetie? Listen to it. Oh, sounds like victory. Well, we've headed off on the maiden voyage. This windscreen wiper on the driver's side of the Mack stopped working, but I fixed it, which is just as well by the look of it. Friggin' egg, where did this shit come from? Hang on, friggin' egg, where did this come from? Molly, you stop breathing so heavy these windows wouldn't fog up. Anyway, we better concentrate on the road. We're making a mile between Rocky and wherever the hell we are, Mackay.
There's some random photos. I reckon now, I've been thinking about this, is between these ones here, between Burke and Cobar, I reckon, Western New South Wales. And there's a lot, I don't know why I took those photos. I like it out there in that part of the country. Might be up near Vulcan. It's a bit hilly out there. This is a old freighter trailer and a Sea Line Inter I bought back for a friend. This is up near Mackay, up the back of Mackay. I don't know why Anyway, I like it, I suppose. Nice bit of scenery. Yeah, this is a job out in the Mallee I was working on, out there. Bit of a dust storm one day, blew up. Quite often it does out there at times on dry years. This is my old McGrath trailer I rescued. Double chassis rail trailer, only one I've ever seen. Very heavy duty. Use it just to main, yeah, anyway, I use it quite a bit. And there's not much more I can say. Obviously, taking us at Lightning Ridge, Western New South Wales, with this big emu-looking statue thing built there. Don't know why, but it's there. That's out the back of Townsville, hooking up as a road train. that's between Rocky and Mackay, doing whatever I'm doing. That there's a Ballyando crossing. That's at Bowen. I think it's Caltex on the highway at Bowen there, going into Bowen. This is at Altona down at Melbourne, collecting the site shed one day. Pinching it up on, hooking it up, and heading off. And unloading it later on. I think this is the next day I was unloading it. That's a Coonabarra brand, getting a few flat tyres fixed. That's winching some containers on with the help of a forklift, you can see there, as you do. Pull down with blocks and everything. Yeah, it's an interesting episode. Come back from Adelaide one night with a whole lot of steel on. Lost a set of jewels. Pinaroo near the border there. Only found one tyre, never found the rest. This old Warrior. That's at Emerald in Queensland. E9 V8 in that one. It's a Chev I collected for my mate. Well, and that's about all I got for this video. I've actually got a lot more, but I'll put it for the next one because no one's watching long drawn out rubbish. There's enough crap on TV as it is without me adding to it. So, stay safe until next time, and well, shouldn't be too far away if I ever get my finger pulled out. See ya.